If you're looking for new ways to hone in on your improvisation, arranging, or composing, and you want to see how I build a style on the piano using the music that inspires me the most, then check out this video where I'm going to perform a piece by Ravel and show you how to directly apply this music into your improvisation, composition, or arranging.
This is gonna be good.
Thanks for joining me on this channel. On here, I'm gonna be sharing with you a lot of tips on improvising and composing, and I'm also gonna be showing performances, so please subscribe if you are interested in seeing more videos. Now, as we begin 2022, you might be asking, what are some ways I can really supercharge my playing and maybe get some inspiration from just seeing the creative process at work? For me, a lot of the inspiration I get when it comes to being able to improvise and finding new modes of expression when I play, there's a lot of inspiration that can come from classical music. And what makes classical music so compelling to me is the sheer number of pathways that many of the great composers on the piano have created. And as we know, the piano is really a mini orchestra. And so when it comes to trying to create an arrangement on the piano or any other instrument, there's just an infinite number of pathways that have already been laid out. Another thing that I just love about classical music on a humanistic level is how all of these artists were composing before the advent of electricity and things that we take for granted, like plumbing, smartphones, fast transportation. And these artists truly express their humanity through their music without any kinds of things that might artificially augment their music making process. One of the eras of classical music that really speaks to me the most is the post-romantic era, right at the turn of the 20th century, which evidently is the time humanity was about to turn towards the modern conveniences that we have today. One of the composers that represents the ethos of this time period was Maurice Ravel. He had his foot in the door of both the modern way of composing, which really threw out the conventions, and just a nostalgic turn towards the past and a look at all the things that he grew up to love in his music. And it all comes out in the way that he writes. Nothing is an attempt to be flashy or modernistic. It's all in service of his very articulate way of expressing. So the piece I'm going to be showing you is Ravel's Prelude from his suite called Tombeau de Couperin, which he wrote at the end of World War I. I'm going to walk through the process I went through when it came to recording the piece, getting it performance ready, and practicing it, because I think that one of the most important things for us as musicians is to focus on getting to the maximum musicianship that we can, especially if we want to use something as inspiration. We really want to focus on trying to interpret it as best we can and polish it.
Oh, goody.
And there were three main things that I focused on when I approached this piece. The first thing I focused on, which is something that a lot of classical musicians are going to tell you to do, pushing all the notes down. So you want to be able to play every note really meticulously. This is just going to make all the ideas that you want to play later much stronger when you really attempt to play every single note with precision, clarity, and intention. The second thing that I really tried to work on was being mindful of dynamics, and not just that, but being aware that when you have a really dense passage with a lot of notes going on, you're going to have to work even harder to make the dynamics really work out. And the way that Ravel composes is that he has all these dense passages that are very quiet. You're going to have to negotiate with the piece and figure out how to keep it from peaking too much. And you're going to have to let it peak a little bit too. I think that's really important. You're going to have to find sort of a deeper concept of dynamics, where dynamics is more about a mood than it is about a volume level when it comes down to it, because you don't always have the ability to control the volume as much as you'd want. And thirdly, when you do work on applying dynamics, it feels like you have to relearn the tune. And a lot of classical musicians and teachers will kind of embarrass you and tell you that, you should know the notes after the first time you learn them. But the reality is that when you learn this music and you try and express it somewhat close to how the composer intended, you're gonna have to relearn passages once you try and use dynamics and phrasing. So don't be intimidated by that. That's what I really learn whenever I try and record classical music. So anyways, with that in mind, I want to show you this best take of the Prelude.
Put your money where your mouth
As a disclaimer, I'm not a classical music advisor. I'm just trying to do my best, and I want to apply this music into my own improvisation. A couple extra notes about performing. This piano that I play on, it's a C3 from about 1998, and this music was meant for a Steinway with a pristine action or a Fazioli. It's a pretty intricate stuff, so pianists will play on this and you'll still hear a mistake or two, you know. And I think that it's always good to deal with your own particular instrument and to just make the best of it. I know that I have a grand, and a lot of people might not have that to practice on, but there are some limitations with my particular instrument. So with all this being said, once you have the tune in decent shape, now we can move on to the improvisation and really figure out how we want to apply this into our own playing. So the first thing you want to do is you really want to identify some of the key things that are going on in the music. Are there some specific figures going on that really work their way through the whole piece, where you can take those figures and apply them to anything, whether it's a standard or an original composition? And so here's the three main figures that I got from this piece.
Get ready, because here it comes.
So the first figure I got was kind of this triplet of sweeping contour line in the right hand with either a call and response between the right and the left or some sweeping accompaniment in the left hand. So I'll show you what I mean right here. You can see that the different phrases play off of one another. The left hand might continue what the right hand was doing as a repeat, while the right hand is doing something here to continue the melody. The next set of figures that were really prevalent was this other kind of situation where you have a line going on in the right hand and there's these 2-note chords going on in the left hand that are moving in kind of a chromatic fashion. It's very much the kind of thing you might see happening in a comping line from someone, where you have these descending lines that will also outline chromatic changes in 2/5s. And this is really great because you can really work this into a lot of stuff. Just taking 2-note lines and really moving them through a chord progression. And this is actually possible to improvise.
Oh, man. Yes. Nice.
The third phrase is this kind of static, slow-moving melody in the right hand, interspersed with these grace notes, and then the left hand does these runs that kind of combine arpeggiations and kind of a 1-5-1 type of movement, just like this. And there are these runs that might go down a pentatonic scale after doing the chord outline, or they might just be stepwise. So once you find these phrases, you can apply them to anything. You can apply them to a standard or an original composition.
You know, caravan, whiplash.
So what I kind of did here was I thought of a standard that might sync up the best with these 3 figures. And the standard that I figured out was Cole Porter's Everything I Love. The standard has a lot of static melodies, which really would lend itself well to those kinds of sweeping left-hand phrases underneath the melody. And then also on top of that, you could create extensions of the melody, and you can really just bend things to your will, make it really work out.
Sounds great.
So with that, I want to note that it takes a lot of work to really line things up with the tune that you're playing. And what I've done was I've actually written out some of the things that I've played, and that's going to be included here as a PDF. So you can take a look at that for yourself. And if you think about it, it's all the same, whether it's Debussy or Ravel or Beethoven or Bach. We are just in the pursuit of taking things that we like and reapplying them somewhere else and using them as means for our own expression. It's all about trying to really analyze what's going on in some way that you can remember in your head and transfer onto something else. And that's the beauty of improvisation, is that we are always taking things that we find, whether it's from bebop, Charlie Parker, or, McCoy Tyner or someone like that, and we can transfer that into our own playing and find new avenues of use for that. Hopefully this gives you some ideas on some ways to approach taking classical music or any other type of music and putting it into your own means of expression. And if you have any questions, or you even want to share somebody who you really want to apply to your music in this way, then feel free to drop a comment. So anyways, that's all for now. Please hit the subscribe button if you want to get more videos, and I'll see you next time.